little background on Smart Access. We are a SaaS-based software company that's focused on making frontline deskless workers productive and efficient as quickly as possible, and supporting those workers as they work by answering questions and providing guidance in the flow of work. Our solution can be scaled based on the size of the organization. We'll talk today about your wireless, but we work with smaller organizations and larger organizations. One of the largest organizations we work with is Home Depot.
I mean, during the day when I'm awake, the stuff that drives me nuts is on this list. And yeah, I think the things that stand out the most are just reducing that workload, the operational tasks, the situation we're in today with the labor shortage and the increased volume in our stores really has our team running lean. And what we're looking to do is just take as much off of their plate as we possibly can so that they could dedicate all of their time to our customers. And that's definitely, when I'm awake, the thing that drives me nuts the most.
So when we engaged with your wireless, these were the different methods that were being used, right? Training aids, PDF documents, charts, one-pagers, people searching for in different locations, emails, texts, chat groups, or binders, using other technologies like learning management systems. And I think of those as kind of linear learning management systems where you may have a class or a CBT or a video that may be a half an hour or longer. And if you want to go back and reference material in there, you got to remember where it was and how far into it was. And it's hard to access directly from the floor. Meetings that are face-to-face and virtual. And also at the time, there was Verizon training. Brian, so how did you know, when you looked at all of these different methods, how did you know that this might not be the most efficient method as you're moving forward into the future?
Every single one of the things you mentioned at some point just imploded on us and did not work. So the training aids aspect and the different locations, we built out tons of stuff from PDFs and one-pagers, and then we worked with, different areas to keep them in, but there was never a time where we didn't run into a customer issue that escalated because someone was looking at old information. And that used to just drive me nuts, whether they pulled up, the third iteration of a PDF that was on 5 and gave the customer the completely wrong information. And, that ended up escalating back as a customer issue. And again, it all goes back to the customer experience. And when that started happening, we knew we needed a better solution. And we had been looking for years and just hadn't found it yet. We used an online LMS for training. It was okay, but it was on a desktop. There was long videos, a lot of reading. The Frontlines just never loved it. It looked nice and everything, but we never got feedback of like, hey, this is awesome, man. We love using this. And that's kind of what we look for. We don't want to force people to use things. Face-to-face meetings, I mean, that, not to anybody's fault, but, we happened to open a brand new office right before the pandemic that had a gigantic training room. We've never hosted a single live training in it. So, outside of our control, but what are you going to do? And then the Verizon training, Verizon's changed their business model a lot with the agents, and they're looking for agents now to provide that level of training on their own. They don't have the resources anymore where we used to have face-to-face trainings constantly with Verizon account managers and DMs. That's all gone away. So now it's on us to provide that training for our employees. So we knew we had to take a different approach to getting that done.
Lini, so there's a lot of content here, right? And it's well thought out content, and it exists. It may not be an easy way to access the content. How does your team handle this type of content, right? I mean, if there are training aids or some existing content, what do you do and how do you handle that?
So typically we start with a discovery session with our stakeholders, just understanding what their pain points are and what content is already available versus what needs to be created. It's quite interesting when we go through that discovery session to discover that there's more training content or content available than what the stakeholder thinks they have. And a lot of it is also not available and they think that it's available. So we see different kinds of information, and there's always, it's always interesting to see which side we trend towards. But whatever is available, my team is responsible for ingesting all of that content and onboarding. So long form videos, or you have PDFs, we have better ways to represent that content in Smart Access. So my team is responsible for onboarding all that existing content, and within a matter of a week or two, we can get the customer up and running with the existing content. Meanwhile, just creating a plan as to what new content needs to be created, and then working with the stakeholder and the content creators to get that content in. But really, at the beginning of the process, we take responsibility of ingesting all of that and making sure that it's transformed into an appropriate format that the users can start using immediately.
And, we prioritized our operations manual, which goes back to, training aids. It was PDFs. It was constantly, needed to be updated, resent out, housed somewhere. It was probably in someone's email. They had to go back and find it. Half the time they found the older version of it. So we took that, and all of that was digitized and put into Smart Access. And that's allowed us to, easily update it, to get rid of the old stuff when it's obsolete. So it's not still sitting out there in somebody's inbox. We know we wiped it clean. And that's been awesome to date. That's been working perfectly. And then we started to build off of that with sales skills, with checklists and operational audits and things of that nature, which have worked great also.
We started getting information into the system. What were some of the reactions from employees as they were accessing this type of content?
So the biggest benefit that we heard was they now had a searchable database rather than picking up the phone and calling someone. So what we found was our district managers or managers, especially when they weren't working, were getting phone calls constantly from the store over how do you do this? How do you do that? What's the password to this? What's the username for that? And it was just all the time, 24/7. And that burns people out when it's like you're not even on the clock and it's Sunday afternoon, you're on the softball field with your buddies, and you might have a 6-pack in you already, and the store is calling you saying like, hey, where's this username? And you're like, I don't know, I'm in center field, man. So that aspect of it, they were like, this is phenomenal. Now, even like when they reach out to me, I'm just like typing into Smart Access. You'll find it, so that aspect of it has been huge. And then the checklist part is a really cool story, because that's not something that you guys even really did at that point. We were always looking for some type of app, and like some of our DMs would use, I forgot what it was called. There's some checklist app, and others used Microsoft Teams, and others used Outlook Calendar. And there was just nothing that was, one solution for everybody, where every level of the business could look at it and see what's going on out there. And it was brought up in conversation, and I don't remember if it was Lini or Tim, but they were like, oh, we could do that for you. And they built out 2 checklists for us. One was store readiness, which is now every store needs to fill out in the morning. It used to be on paper and used to be tracked that way. And they used to just fill out a month's worth and, stick them in a binder. And we'd have our auditor go into the store and look at the binder, and he'd be like, it's May 14th. How did you do your opening checklist on May 28th? So, this digitized that, as well as their daily responsibilities, which is really just a list of reminders of things you need to check every day, from trainings to, outbound marketing, incoming messages, things like that. So that was, a really cool benefit for Smart Access to come through on something we didn't even intend to use it for, and solve that for us.
If that manager wanted to, they could actually push the specific content. Employees can search for content, or if you see that an employee's not doing something correctly, you can actually push content right to that employee, as if you had pushed social media content. Brian, so the wireless business is constantly changing, right? New plans, new insurance, new phones. How how does digitizing this help?
I think a lot of it goes back to what I mentioned earlier of getting rid of the old stuff, because when things change frequently and they change rapidly, and for us to have to manage changing them in multiple places and making sure all of the old information is removed and updated to the new information, getting everything into one platform and just knowing it's, hey, if this plan changed, if we update what that plan is in Smart Access, we're done. We don't have to worry about where else is it, were there emails sent, did we print things and give them out to the stores, are they laminated on people's desks and we got to make sure they throw them out. Everything's in one place. It's quickly and easy to update, and it's just made that aspect of the business and managing that expected but sudden and rapid change manageable.
Got it. Spend just a couple of slides here showing you actually what people access and how they use it in the stores. This first piece here is, we refer to it as a skill build. And if you think about a new employee here, we have Joel, who's new to the organization, and Lynn is his manager. Lynn can essentially assign him a skill build for his role. So this is a capsule of information that Joel can then consume. He can practice, and inside this capsule of information, it could be videos like Lini had mentioned, it could be documents, it could be cheat sheet guides, it could be links to other content, but it's essentially everything he needs in order to be successful in this role. And so he can consume it, he can practice it, and then he can go and show Lynn, I'm proficient in these areas, and she essentially can check that off. So both people know exactly what they need to do in order to be successful. It allows Joel to focus on the key components that he needs. And it allows Lynn to be able to quickly track and provide guidance. Maybe Joel's stuck on a certain area, and so she can step in and provide assistance and guidance. It's also helpful to Lynn because she's probably not just helping Joel. She probably has other people. She may have had 2 people start this week and 3 people start the previous week. And so this allows her, as she's entering an environment, to quickly get a synopsis of where people are at and where to best use her time to get people over certain hurdles. That's how you can assign tasks for people when they start. But then if they're working, in this case, let's say Joel's working and he may be doing a store opening, and I hear from managers frequently, that's usually when they get the calls, either store opening or store closing. And Joel may be doing this for the first time, or maybe he's coming across a scenario that he hasn't seen before. And what he can actually do is he can scan a QR code or an NFC tag in the work area that he's working in, and all the information that he needs in order to be successful in that workspace will come up. And again, it's videos, quick Instagram stories style videos. It could be documents. It can be links to other content. It can be pictures, it can be codes, usernames, email. And all of that information will come up. And he literally goes from, I've got a question to I've got an answer in 2 seconds, and is able to review that. He can actually swipe up, it doesn't show here, but he can swipe up, and if you have a 10-step process, he can go to the exact step where he might have a question. So it's very quick to access the information.
Big one has been the new hire training, which was recently converted into Smart Access. So our new hire training process prior was once a month. We had a 2-week long, so 2 weeks out of the entire month was we had our company trainer dedicated to training new hires. So those new hires then had to be on calls at certain times, which was always a challenge because number one, we're in 3 different time zones. So you're either asking someone to get on this training call at 6 o'clock in the morning, or you're asking them to get on a training call when the store is open and they may not be available to be in front of a computer. So that was a big challenge on top of just, people working different schedules, different shifts, different days. We probably got 40% of our new hires through this actual training because of the issues with the scheduling. So when we decided, hey, this isn't working, this isn't sustainable, let's look at Smart Access as a solution for this. we made it a self-paced training, where it structures everything for them. It structures it for their manager, but it breaks it out into, days 1 through 9 or 10 of their first couple of weeks with the company. And that way everyone can start at their own pace in their own time zone, not at 6 o'clock in the morning, and get through it within their schedule. And we've gotten a lot of feedback from our leaders that, hey, this is such a better option than taking them off of the sales floor and away from me for, 2 hours a day for 10 days. That doesn't even fit within the hours I scheduled for them. Now they're working directly with that leader, going through the same process at a time that works within their schedule. So that's been great feedback from our leaders out there.
As Brian mentioned earlier, they've got great numbers relative to retention. Working with some of other organizations that we're working with, we're seeing that we're able to help increase retention. In some cases, it's as high as 50%. And some of the other organizations we're working with, we're seeing a reduction in time to proficiency, and in some cases as high as 60%. So if it's taken 90 days to get someone proficient, we're seeing it get down below 30 days. So there's some significant impacts for the frontline workers, getting them proficient, and also for retaining them. The system, people are using it. We see the daily audits coming in on a daily basis. Brian and Lini, as you kind of look out into the future, what are some other areas where you would like to take advantage of the platform to help you with things as you move forward?
Brian, I'll let you start.
Sure. Well, there's a couple that are in the works currently. So the performance-based initiatives is really exciting. So Smart Access is now pulling in our performance data from our POS system, and they'll be using that to push content to users. So if you're below a certain threshold in a certain metric of the business, then you'll be automatically pushed on a certain date training content in that metric. It'll then be tracked, what's the improvement of that individual, and then they'll receive more training content if needed, or then, we'll just track the outcome there and the improvement that we're seeing. So that's a really exciting aspect, along with the evaluations. So again, in terms of where we house things, when it comes to our HR stuff, we're sort of in that same boat of, hey, we have a bunch of different places we put stuff. We change it frequently. It's like, all right, so let's find where that employee's review from last year was. And, it might be in a filing cabinet. It might be in somebody's email. It might be in a Google Drive somewhere. So taking all of that and using StatFlow for evaluations, as well as coaching in the stores and things of that nature, is somewhere else we want to go with it too.
Really looking forward to just improving performance by utilizing Smart Access. And a few of the customers that I've spoken to, they do performance evaluations and observations, but only when an employee is in a performance improvement plan. So why even get to the point that you actually have an employee performance improvement plan? Let's just implement all of this beforehand, so you have consistently increasing performance. And have your employees be productive to the best of their ability. So everything related to performance, we'll attack that from different angles.
Okay, and I just want to say thanks again, Brian, for taking time from your busy day. We appreciate it, as well as Lini. Thank you.